Well, there he goes again. The thin-skinned maniac Donald Trump is filing another lawsuit. This one is a defamation lawsuit that he has filed against ABC and George Stephanopoulos in connection with a interview that Stephanopoulos did on This Week over the weekend of March 10th, 2024 with MAGA Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace. In that interview, George Stephanopoulos was questioning Mace about her support for an adjudicated rapist, as Stephanopoulos framed the issue. And Donald Trump is now suing Stephanopoulos for defamation, saying that, in fact, Donald Trump was found civilly liable for sexual assault and not rape. First, I want to show you the interview. Then I want to briefly go through this court filing, and then I want to share with you some orders by federal judge Lewis Kaplan that I think absolutely destroy Donald Trump's case, and in fact make it most likely that Donald Trump is not just going to lose, but get hit with massive sanctions. So let's break it down this way. First, here's a portion of the interview with Stephanopoulos and Nancy Mace that Donald Trump says is defamatory. Let's play the clip.
Judge, guilty of doing.
He defended himself over that and denies that it ever happened, but he was not found guilty in a criminal court of law. It was a civil judgment.
So is that the distinction you're making?
Abuse.
A civil judgment is okay, but a criminal judgment is not?
This is different, and they didn't even input all of the evidence into the civil case either, because some of the information she provided wasn't even accurate or correct. But to sit here and ask me as a rape victim to try to shame me for my political choices is wrong. And I think it's offensive.
You can repeat that again and again and again.
And I'm going to, because I find it deeply offensive.
You don't find it offensive that Donald Trump has been found liable for rape?
I find it offensive as a rape victim that you're trying to shame me for my political choices. And I've said again repeatedly, E. Jean Carroll has made a mockery out of rape by joking about it. I don't find that funny. Well, rape is not funny.
You've made it
rape
perfectly clear.
Serious.
You've made it perfectly clear.
Rape
you're comfortable.
Is serious.
It is
it's
serious.
Not funny, and it shouldn't be made a mockery of. But if you want to defend a woman who made a mockery out of rape, then you go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do that.
Well, actually, what you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape. I don't understand how you can do that.
Not in a criminal court of law. This was a civil judgment over sexual abuse, not rape, by the way, and she made a mockery out of it.
Can we pull up the Washington Post headline right there? In fact, it has been shown to be rape. The judge affirmed that it was, in fact, rape. Donald Trump was found to have committed rape. That's just a fact.
That is a civil judgment, not a criminal court. They're two very different things, and you know better.
Well, I just showed you the facts.
You know better.
You show that you're very comfortable with what Donald Trump has done.
And what you've done is offensive to women who've been raped. What you've done this morning is offensive.
We'll let the viewers decide about that. Let's talk about...
So that's one of a few other portions where Stephanopoulos was questioning Nancy Mace for her support of Donald Trump, and you see Mace attacking E. Jean Carroll and also just saying a bunch of other stuff that just appears to be pure gaslighting. When you go through this federal lawsuit filed by Donald Trump in the Southern District of Florida, he filed it in the Miami division. A few things of note. First, the lawyer for Donald Trump, Alejandro Brito from Brito PLLC, it's the same legal team and same courthouse that Michael Cohen was sued. Remember, Cohen then noticed Donald Trump's deposition when Trump sued Cohen for over $300 million, and then Donald Trump tried to desperately avoid the deposition, and then when Cohen continued to request the deposition, Donald Trump dismissed his action against Michael Cohen before Cohen would likely be able to get sanctions against Donald Trump. So Trump's bringing Alejandro Brito back for this, in my opinion, very frivolous, sanctionable action against George Stephanopoulos and ABC. And here's what it says. It says, this is an action arising from defendant's transmission and publication of intentionally false and defamatory statements made to numerous third parties about plaintiff, and they make the lawyers refer to him as President Donald Trump, even though he's a former, but say President Donald J. Trump, they write, more specifically and as set forth in greater detail below, on Sunday, March 10th, 2024, defendant George Stephanopoulos, during the airing of his weekly television show, This Week with George Stephanopoulos, falsely stated on several occasions that plaintiff had been found liable by multiple juries for the rape of Miss E. Jean Carroll. These statements were and remain false and were made by defendant Stephanopoulos with actual malice or with a reckless disregard for the truth. Given that defendant Stephanopoulos knows that these statements are patently and demonstrably false. Indeed, the jury expressly found that plaintiff did not commit rape, and as demonstrated below, defendant George Stephanopoulos was aware of the jury's finding in this regard, yet still falsely stated otherwise. Defendant Stephanopoulos made these defamatory statements, which were communicated and published to third parties within the scope and course of his employment and contractual relationships with other defendant with the intent to harm plaintiff, given that inter alia, we use the Latin word meaning among other things, defendant Stephanopoulos was and is aware of the truth regarding the determination made by the subject juries, and also because his defamatory statements appear to have been prepared in advance and were written on notes that he was reading from while making these defamatory statements. And as you go through the complaint, it's usually just a bunch of Donald Trump whining, some photographs from the interview that I just shared with you. And then it says that as a result of this, Donald Trump claims that he was injured and he was harmed by this. Okay, well, should we look at what federal judge Lewis Kaplan wrote in two separate orders? Well, in one order, federal judge Lewis Kaplan, when addressing a doctrine called collateral estoppel, that Donald Trump would be precluded from arguing that he did not rape E. Jean Carroll and that he did not engage in sexual assault, which federal judge Lewis Kaplan ruled on in advance of the second trial, where Donald Trump was hit with an $83.3 million verdict along with punitive damages. Here is what federal judge Lewis Kaplan in the Southern District of New York ruled. And this is why I said Trump is likely going to be sanctioned for this lawsuit against Stephanopoulos and ABC. The jury in Carroll 2, this is what the federal judge found in the E. Jean Carroll case. The jury in Carroll 2 found by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump sexually abused Ms. Carroll and injured her in doing so. His conduct was willfully negligent or reckless in doing so, or he acted with a conscious disregard for Ms. Carroll's rights. And 3, Ms. Carroll was entitled to compensatory and punitive damages for sexual abuse of $2.2 million, referring to the one in May. Remember, in the new trial, it was $83.3 million. Consequently, the fact that Mr. Trump sexually abused, indeed raped, Ms. Carroll has been conclusively established and is binding in this case. This is a federal court order. So George Stephanopoulos and ABC, in my opinion, were well within their rights to rely on a finding by a federal judge. So Stephanopoulos was using the words of federal judge Lewis Kaplan. Then Donald Trump also sued E. Jean Carroll for defamation for her use in a subsequent interview following the May trial of the word rape. And that case was thrown out. And in another order, so there's multiple orders of federal judge Lewis Kaplan saying this, this is what federal judge Lewis Kaplan wrote. The only issue which the jury did not find in Ms. Carroll's favor was whether she proved that Mr. Trump, quote, raped her within the narrow technical meaning of that term in the New York penal law. The jury in Carroll 2 was instructed that it could find that Mr. Trump, quote, raped Ms. Carroll only if it found that he forcibly penetrated Ms. Carroll's vagina with his penis. It cannot find that he, quote, raped her if it determined that Mr. Trump forcibly penetrated Ms. Carroll's private sexual part with his fingers, which commonly is considered, quote, rape in other contexts, because the New York penal law definition of rape is limited to penile penetration. As the court explained in its recent decision denying Mr. Trump's motion for a new trial on damages and other relief in Carroll 2, based on all of the evidence at trial and the jury's verdict as a whole, the jury's finding that Mr. Trump, quote, sexually abused Ms. Carroll implicitly determined that he forcibly penetrated her digitally. In other words, that Mr. Trump did in fact, quote, rape Ms. Carroll, as the term is commonly used and understood in contexts outside of the New York penal law. And so again, those are two separate, there's multiple more instances where federal judge Lewis Kaplan wrote that. So Donald Trump is basically suing Stephanopoulos and ABC for using the term that a federal judge used Trump's trying to file this in the Southern District of Florida. I think that it'll be interesting to see if Stephanopoulos challenges that and tries to move the forum before federal Judge Lewis Kaplan. But this should be an easy case to dismiss. But why is Trump doing this? Well, Trump wants to try to make other reporters be afraid from using that language. He's very worried about people using that regarding him. So his belief is to basically get some stooge lawyer, because no competent lawyer would really file this, get some loser lawyer to file this thing, and then hopefully scare other people, other journalists, other reporters, not to use the language that Stephanopoulos did in his reporting. That's the whole purpose of this. It's just a matter of time before Trump loses this case, and we'll be there every step of the way. But again, I mean, just think about this. For all the times that these MAGA Republicans like defame President Biden, Biden doesn't sue. Biden's like, get away. Like, let me focus on what actually matters. Trump, very thin-skinned, complete and total maniac. This is his MO, and his MO is just losing. So it's just a matter of time before he loses here. And I want to give you the evidence and support why he's going to lose. I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers together. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, Midas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.